Hello, it's, well, device review time, flashcard review time. Yes, the Neo Geo Pocket Game Drive from Retro HQ, makers of the Jaguar game drive that I reviewed quite recently. Also the Atari Lynx game drive that I reviewed ages ago. It is, well, what it looks like. It's a flash cart that fits in the Neo Geo Pocket Colour. You put a micro SD card in it with all your Neo Geo Pocket and Pocket Colour games. It goes in the little slot there. It's physically, it's the size you would expect. It's the size and shape of a Neo Geo Pocket Colour cartridge. It is 3D printed and laser sintered, I believe was the word. James, I think his name is James, Mr. Retro HQ, yeah, described it as laser sintered, which makes a really nice finish. It's very matte. I can't describe it. It's nice. I like it. It's cool. It does what you would expect, though in a slightly different way to some of these cartridges, and I will show you. First of all, the Neo Geo Pocket Colour, just in case you're not familiar with the device, because I don't know how we'll get to is it worth having one of these anymore later, but yeah, I'll plug that in and we'll have a look at what it does. Okay, this is going to be tricky trying to do this with the camera just here. So you get your cartridge, you plug it in there like that, as you would expect. You turn it on and it boots up. Let's try and zoom in and try and display this. This is really hard because the Neo Geo Pocket doesn't have a backlight. So it's a very, very reflective colour LCD screen. So if I tilt that there, you're not going to see it. So we've got to have it at that angle. We've got sunlight coming in that way, which is the best light for using things like this. Now, you have two tabs on this menu screen, which you can switch between them with the option button there. Oh yeah, wait. There we go. So that represents the games that you've got stored on your micro SD card and the games that are stored in the flash RAM of the cartridge, and that's what makes this a bit different from a lot of these kind of cartridges. You kind of get used to, you just plug the cartridge in, put your games on your micro SD card, and when you want to play a game it just loads it straight from the SD card. That doesn't happen here. You've got to load it into flash RAM. You can have 15 megabits worth of storage on the flash RAM, so you can fit, it depends on the size of the game, they vary between 0.5 and 4 megabits, so you could have up to 6 or 7 games stored in flash RAM, and the games load into the system from flash RAM. The trick here, and the reason for having a bunch of games, like the ones you're going to play most, store them in flash RAM, because it actually takes a little while to transfer them across. Let's pick an example. Last Blade. It's 2 megabits, and we'll transfer it across. There we go, and it's putting it into flash RAM. And as you'll see, it takes a little while. This isn't, I'm not criticizing it for it, it's just a fact of how it works, which is why it's worth having several games stored in your flash RAM. It's like, know your games, know which ones you're going to have in it, or which ones you're going to play most, and have those already in your flash RAM. Maybe keep a slot or two free for, I don't know, if you feel like something different. Because It's like going back to the 8-bit days of tape loading. It takes a minute. It kind of surprised me initially. You know, it's not a criticism. It's just how it works. So it pays to be organised in what you store in your flash RAM. So we'll wait for it to transfer across. I'm going to let it keep running so you can see literally how long it takes, rather than editing this for speed, because it is a relevant thing to bear in mind. Really impatient people with a short attention span might struggle. I don't know, but personally I'm fine with it. And then once this is done, I'll put it across to the flash RAM list and we'll load a game into the console, and you can see how quickly that then loads up. We're nearly there. It's the kind of thing you could, I mean, on one of the 4 megabit games like Metal Slug 2, and I think there's an SNK versus Capcom, they're 4 megabits. You could probably put the kettle on and make a cup of tea. This is retro gaming. This is the retro experience. Granted, it's not the retro experience we're used to with cartridge games, but you know, it's interesting. So, where are we at? Last Blade. We'll now load that up into the main. See, it is there. Loads up from flash quite quickly. And here it is doing its thing, whatever it does. So, literally, that is all there is to it. There are other... You do get some instructions with it. There's an instruction leaflet, which is, it's always nice to get an instruction leaflet or manual or whatever. It tells you stuff like what the various... that kind of thing. But really it's all pretty self-explanatory. So the question I asked or alluded to earlier is it worth having one of these? Not now talking about the Game Drive, but the Neo Geo Pocket, because it would be a very valid question people might ask when you've got things like these Anbernic handhelds that emulate other handhelds so well. Why have one of these? And the answer is actually interesting, and it is because this doesn't have a backlit screen. This has a very reflective colour LCD screen that the experience of playing on that screen you cannot emulate on an Anbernic handheld. You can emulate the games and the way it represents them. It'll emulate the game perfectly, but it can't emulate the display because the Anbernic systems are backlit and the visual experience is completely different. When you're playing a game on one of these, the look of the reflective screen is almost metallic. It's like shiny... It's like the graphics are made of shiny coloured tinfoil. High resolution shiny tinfoil. And it's absolutely fascinating, and it looks really, really classy. And you don't get that with an emulated Neo Geo Pocket Colour on an Anbernic handheld. You just get standard backlit, whatever they're using, graphics, you know. It's not the same. So, yeah, I do believe there is a reason for still owning a handheld like this. If you want the genuine experience, which is unique, you got to have one of these. And if you got one of these, I highly recommend having one of the Neo Geo Pocket Game Drive cartridges, because a lot of, I mean, I haven't put all of the games available for the system on the cartridge. Not because they won't fit, but because I have no way of playing them. A lot of them are Japanese, a lot of them are RPGs, a lot of them are Japanese RPGs, and there's a lot of Mahjong, I'm going to call it Mahjong, whatever, games, which I have no interest in and can't understand because they're Japanese. But anyway, even though there aren't that many games, it's a heck of a lot cheaper to get a game drive and put all the ROMs of the games that you can play onto it than to go and buy the cartridges if you can find them. Yeah, highly recommended if you want a unique handheld gaming experience that you're not going to get with a handheld emulator system. Okay, think I've made my point. Thank you for watching. Oh, and a great big thank you to my Patreon supporters, without whom I wouldn't have bought this cartridge. And indeed the same goes for the Jaguar Game Drive cartridge as well. Massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. And thank you for watching.
So, is he starting some kind of cookery show? It says something here about having pastry on. Pies? I like pies.